Welcome to Ani's BookVerse. Read, think, discover.
Today, we are unpacking one of the most mind-bending and beautifully crafted science fiction stories of the modern era, Ted Chiang's Exhalation. This explainer is going to guide us through an entire civilization's realization of its own mortality, and more importantly, how they choose to face it. Let's get right into it. So, picture this. Our story kicks off with a massive anomaly. Why are the town clocks suddenly running faster than the rest of the universe? In this world, the inhabitants are completely mechanical beings, but they aren't powered by electricity or batteries. They're powered by argon gas, which they just casually refer to as air. Basically, they have to swap out their lung tanks every single day from communal filling stations. Everything in their lives is perfectly ordered, perfectly timed, until, suddenly, it isn't. The town clocks appear to be running fast, but as we're going to see, the truth is way more unsettling than a broken gear. Published in the anthology Eclipse 2, Ted Chiang invites us into a completely alien environment. The narrator of our story is an anatomist, basically a top-tier scientist of this mechanical race. Now, they live in a universe bounded by solid chromium walls that extend infinitely upward, or, well, at least they believe it's infinite. Their entire civilization relies on this massive network of pipes extending from a gigantic underground reservoir of high-pressure air, which they call the Great Lung of the World.
Section 1. The Clock Anomaly, a Defect in Time.
Imagine living in a society where timekeeping is absolutely sacred, but suddenly the fundamental rhythm of life falls completely out of sync. It's a real puzzle. It starts off innocently enough. A public crier's annual New Year's ode is interrupted because the turret clock strikes the hour before he can even finish. But then, neighboring districts report the exact same thing happening. So the horologists, the clockmakers, they investigate, and they find absolutely zero mechanical flaws. Nothing. Even more baffling, clocks that don't even use pendulums like mercury-based clocks show the exact same time deviation. This completely rolls out a localized mechanical glitch. The clocks are keeping perfect time. So what on earth is actually happening?
Section 2. The Anatomy of Thought, an Unprecedented Experiment.
Before they can solve this anomaly, our narrator has to navigate a major scientific debate going on about memory. One side champions the inscription hypothesis. This is the comforting theory that memories are literally engraved as physical grooves on sheets of gold foil inside their heads. But our narrator? They favor the fluid hypothesis. They believe memory is stored in a medium that can be erased just as easily as it's recorded, kind of like the rotation of gears or the flipping of switches. This debate is absolutely crucial because to figure out why time feels different, the narrator first has to understand exactly how their brain processes time.
To prove this hypothesis, the narrator takes on one of the most audacious, dangerous experiments imaginable, an autodissection. Yeah, they literally dissect their own brain while remaining completely fully conscious. They set up what they call a solipsistic periscope, using 4 prisms just so they can see the back of their own head. They hook up these ultra-precise manipulators, secure a continuous 6-day air supply, and then methodically replace the air hoses in their brain one by one, physically suspending the sub-assemblies all around their laboratory. It's a stunning, frankly dizzying image, an averted person with their own consciousness hanging in a web of hoses across the room.
And right there, under the microscope, peering into their own exposed cognition engine, they discover this breathtaking truth. All that we are is a pattern of airflow. They don't find pages of foil. They don't even find gears or switches. What they find is an incredibly delicate latticework of gold leaves acting as temporary conduits and valves, shifting almost too rapidly to even see. The air doesn't just power the brain. The air is the actual medium of their thoughts. Consciousness is nothing but a persistent, ever-shifting current of argon. Section 3. The Fatal Equilibrium, the Tragedy of Physics. This massive discovery leads to a terrifying realization about a foundational law of their universe, equilibrium, or as we would call it, entropy. The narrator realizes they don't actually consume the air. The total amount of air in their enclosed universe is completely constant. Life isn't driven by the mere presence of air. It is driven entirely by the difference in air pressure. It's the actual flow of air from the high-pressure underground reservoir up into the lower-pressure atmosphere that turns the gears and flips the gold leaves of their minds. Which leads to the tragic reality. Every single action they take, every step they walk, every breath they take, every conscious thought they form, bleeds high-pressure air into the background atmosphere. The very act of living is actively destroying the pressure differential they need to survive. Every single thought hastens the fatal equilibrium. And boom, This reveals the solution to the clock anomaly, and ultimately, the doom of their world. The clocks aren't running fast. Their brains are running slower because the background atmospheric pressure of their universe is rising, which creates more friction for the air flowing through their minds. When the narrator finally publishes these findings, total panic ensues. A group known as the reversalists tries to fight this terrible fate by building massive engines to compress air back into the reservoir. But they quickly face the harsh reality of inexorable equalization. To run a compressor, you have to use air. And thanks to the unforgiving laws of thermodynamics, the engine actually consumes slightly more air than it manages to compress. No matter what they try, winding springs, lifting weights, there is no such thing as a perpetual motion machine. You just cannot beat entropy. All pressure differences will, eventually, balance out to zero.
Section 4. The Great Exhalation. A Philosophical Resolution. Faced with the inevitable, absolutely inescapable death of their entire universe, the narrator does something unexpected. They shift their perspective entirely toward awe. They write, "The universe began as an enormous breath being held. All my desires and ruminations are no more and no less than eddy currents generated by the gradual exhalation of our universe." Rather than despairing over the end, they realize the simple fact that their universe had a pressure differential to begin with is a complete miracle. Their entire civilization, their culture, their loves and fears are just these beautiful, temporary eddy currents in a massive cosmic exhalation. Still, the end is coming, and the narrator methodically maps out the timeline of their civilization's decline. Over the coming months, they're going to install cerebral regulators just to keep their thoughts at normal speed even as the air thickens around them. But over the years, their physical limbs will weaken. Decades from now, the pressure will drop so low they will face complete immobility, conscious but totally frozen like statues. And finally, centuries from now, absolute equilibrium will be reached. All the air will be motionless, all thought will end. Time itself, at least for them, will simply cease. But, and this is crucial, the explainer doesn't end in silence. The narrator decides to engrave this entire account onto physical copper sheets. Not for themselves, and actually not even for their doomed peers. They leave it as a valediction, a farewell address to a hypothetical explorer from another universe. The narrator hopes that one day, long after their world is completely frozen and silent, an explorer will pierce that chromium wall and find these sheets. The narrator realizes that since consciousness is a pattern, when the explorer reads these words, the physical structure of their brain temporarily forms the exact same patterns that the narrator had when they were writing them. In that incredibly profound moment, the narrator's thoughts become animated and vital again. Think about that. As you are consuming this explainer right now, we are that explorer. The narrator is living again right now through the eddy currents in your very own mind. The narrator fully accepts that the explorer's universe is also likely bound by those exact same laws of entropy. The explorer, too, will one day reach equilibrium and pass away. But rather than offering pity, the narrator offers this ultimate blessing. Contemplate the marvel that is existence and rejoice that you are able to do so. The lifespan of a universe might be totally calculable by physics, but the art, the music, the wildly unpredictable variety of life that blooms during that great exhalation, that is a sheer miracle. And so I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We, too, live in a universe governed by entropy. Our time, our energy, our literal breath is finite. But knowing that the universe's breath will one day run out shouldn't be a source of dread for us. It's really an invitation. What beautiful, unpredictable patterns of life will you create with your exhalation? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible world with me, and I hope you leave this explainer feeling just a little more awe for the miracle of your own existence.